Welcome to Capital Link's Trending News podcast series. In this podcast series, we discuss with company management on recent news and announcements they have made. We have with us today Mr. Aristides Pittas, Chairman and CEO of the NASDAQ listed Euroseas under the symbol ESEA. Euroseas is an owner and operator of container vessels and provider of seaborne transportation for containerized cargoes. I'm Nicholas Bornoulis of Capital Link, and Capital Link is the investor relations advisor to Euroseas. Aristides, welcome. I would like to ask you, with the occasion of the recent announcement, you placed a new order for the construction of two feeder container vessels of 2,800 TEUs each at the South Korean shipyard. This brings the total new build order book for you to 4. So we see that Euroseas has embarked on quite an aggressive fleet renewal and expansion. Can you please guide us through the rationale and strategy for this?
Thank you, Nicholas, for having me here again. Indeed, we have decided to put an additional order for 2 vessels at the same yard. They are sister ships to the vessels that we ordered just a few months ago. So now we have 4 sister ships. I wish to remind our audience that in the beginning of 2020, we sold our 5 elder ships of an average age of about 25 years old for scrap. So this is really an exchange for those ships. We have been very fortunate to be able to charter the remaining of our fleet at very good levels for durations between 2 to 4 years. So the remainder of our ships, which are also not too young, have been fixed and will be providing record earnings over the next 2-3 years. But these record earnings is additional cash flow which we will be using to buy more ships, and we have put these orders on now. So we will be growing more with more modern ships today, when it's become more and more important to build more eco ships. These 4 vessels consume 30% less fuel than the similar sized vessels that we had in the past.
I would like to come back to this, to the advantage of the new designs of ships. But before we go to that, let me ask you, you mentioned in your announcement recently that this quartet of new buildings of 2,800 TEUs each allows Euroseas to build a stronger presence in the large feeder containership segment. So why are you focusing more on these larger vessels? Is that a change of strategy?
Well, not a significant change of strategy. We have moved up from the 1,200 to 3,500 TEU ships to, say, 1,700 to 6,000 TEU ships, because the size of the feeder vessels has been gradually increasing as the size of container ships has been growing. But we still want to be in the feeder sector. It's just that the feeder sector has become bigger. This is a sector which is underbuilt, but still very, very much a requirement within the fleet. It's a much more flexible also size, trading to much more many ports. So we still think it's a very nice spot to be in, and we will be concentrating our expansion in this area.
Aristides, you mentioned that the size of the feeder vessels is becoming larger. So is the 2,800 TEUs becoming the, so to speak, workhorse of this particular segment?
I think it's between the 1,700s and the 2,800s is becoming the workhorse, but also the Panamax vessels are now becoming feeder vessels it's also becoming part of the feeder business, I would say.
So let's talk about now the greenhouse emissions. We have new regulations coming in as of 2023. What would be the effect of the greenhouse new regulations on your fleet, which consists mostly at this point of older and middle-aged vessels? Can you share with us measures you have taken to improve the environmental footprint of your fleet? And what are your plans for continued fleet renewal? Will you order new vessels, more vessels?
We have to be very careful not to overdo it in over-rushing ourselves to replace existing vessels with vessels that burn a fuel that does not exist yet. The existing fuels will still be used for quite some time yet, but the regulations are being imposed worldwide, and especially by the IMO, that will make it more expensive to run on elder fuels or on the existing fuels, and more expensive to run on ships that burn a lot of fuel. So we have to run our ships as economically as we can and make our ships as economic as we can. And the advantages of vessels that burn even conventional fuels, but at lesser quantities, will become much more significant. And that's why you see that we are still ordering vessels that run on conventional fuels. This will be around for the next 15, 20 years, I am sure. We, of course, will replace those vessels at some point, but it's not coming tomorrow. And that's why we feel comfortable in ordering conventional type vessels today. They will be around for the next years. They will be needed. We see it, immediately as we try and reduce capacity of ships because of greenhouse emissions. We have bottlenecks and logistical issues which create so big problems that they are insurmountable. So we will need these ships, but we have to make them as economical as we can. So we are installing in the new ships that we are building, for example, AMP devices that will allow the vessels, when they are in port, not to consume fuel oil, but to take electricity from ashore. We are trying to put paints that are reducing friction on the vessels so that we consume less. There are all sorts of measures being taken to be as optimal as we can in the fuel consumption, accepting the fact that we will still be running with conventional fuels, which will be as clean as possible, though, in the next decade or so. So we will make our ships as economical as we can, following the IMO rules and following the new technology that is developed. But be sure, Nicholas, we will be using these conventional fuels for the next 10, 15 years at least.
Well, as you described, these new vessels will have the capacity, the capability rather, to consume less, 30% less, and you are installing all the other devices to allow you to use electricity and so on while in port. So you do have a clear path in terms of reducing the environmental footprint of the fleet. 2023 is coming soon. We have EEXI and other measures kicking in. Can you tell us your fleet is prepared for that?
We are as prepared as we can be. We, of course, do take all the necessary measures to do that. We all know that the main impact of these new regulations will be that vessels will be going more slowly. This is the only real solution, in addition with all the additional measures that might be required from some older ships in addition to running slower, affect some cleaning of the vessels, maybe modifications on propellers, on bulbous bows. We will see what is needed. Everything that is needed in order to continue running the vessels will be done.
And I assume that the slow steaming will have an impact on fleet supply because you will have fewer ships available. So that would be a positive impact in terms of keeping a tight balance between supply and demand.
This is one of the reasons why I think the industry expects that we will maintain very high charter rates over the next few years. The fact that the environmental regulations will push towards slower speeds.
So last question, how do you plan to fund this fleet renewal and the potential growth? You are in a period that you are generating strong cash flow, as we have disclosed. So how do you plan to use this cash flow in relation to your fleet renewal and expansion?
As I said, Nicholas, in the beginning, we have secured extremely strong charters on practically all the ships that we currently own. This cash flow is going to be used mostly for fleet renewal with vessels that are as economically as currently possible with the existing technology. And this is our prime scope, to build up a bigger fleet, renew the fleet with as green as possible vessels today. So this is a strategy, very simple strategy within Euroseas.
Well, thank you very much for being with us, Aristides, and for sharing your insight in this. If you would like more information on Euroseas, please go to the company's website at www.euroseas.gr. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for having me again. Thank you.